Good morning, everyone, to the Governance and Transparency Committee for November, well, the second one for November of 2022. I'll start with the attendance. All members of the committee are in attendance, and we'll move on to the acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. Do any members of committee this morning have a declaration of interest to make? No declarations. Move on to item 1, business outstanding, the response to council resolution about reporting processes. Do any members of committee have questions of the officers on this one? Mayor?
I'm happy to take initial questions if you like, Mayor, or Wade Wilson's available.
Okay, thank you. I just have 3 questions. The first is, I note the proposal of the new reporting to committee and council procedure for the officers, as well as report writing training. What in the review prompted these inclusions?
So in relation to the procedure, as the report indicates, through you, Chair, the procedure simply sets about to document in line with good governance largely the existing procedures already followed by this organisation in relation to the administration of reports to standing committees and to councils. It was otherwise not documented into a procedure, so that has been done. In relation to report writing training, the review that was completed and the discussions with report writers across the teams that was undertaken indicated again that in line with continuous improvement and good governance, it was seen as beneficial. You know, given like every organisation, there is turnover. Pleasingly, our turnover rate is currently sitting at around 9%, which is lower than it has been at various points over the last couple of years. But nonetheless, new people are appointed to roles. So it's, again, important that we, as report writers, understand the report preparation process, the authorisation process, when in fact a report is draft, when a report is authorised and when it is authorised to progress through to a committee or to a council. So again, it was seen as continuous improvement and good governance to arrange such training.
Thank you for the review. And did the review find any significant failings or gaps of council's existing policies and procedures that needed to be addressed?
No, it didn't.
Okay. Is there anything in this report and the updated policy that would prevent any of the councillors from requesting information from the CEO?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Is there anything in the changes in the policy that would prevent any of the councillors from requesting information from yourself?
No, not that I'm aware of, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee this morning? Councillor Johnnick.
Thank you. So just highlighting page 10, the last paragraph, discussing that the review included an audit of internal council systems access to InfoCouncil, Algae Hub and Objective, resulting in amended access protocols in some areas. I believe that was a big part of this process. Is that something that the council is happy that they've implemented restricted access there?
Might be best if the Manager Executive Services, who's had closer involvement in that, comes forward to comment there. Councillor Johnnick, through you, Chair.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Wade Wilson, Manager Executive Services.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. So just noting on page 10 in the last paragraph, it notes that access restrictions were reviewed, internal access protocols were amended. Is that something that you found as a significant achievement as part of this process?
So when we're looking at, when we did the review and looked at the whole process from start to finish, from conception of an idea through to the council ultimately making a decision, we looked at every step of that process, officers' involvements, and part of that we looked at who had access to reports. We had previously at council taken more of an open access, and not just within report writing, within the entirety of the organisation to certain areas. The compilation of a lot of these reports has sensitive or confidential information within there, and of course all officers have their code of conduct obligations in accessing and sharing confidential material, but it was revealed that we probably it would have been beneficial to tighten up areas of control. Some of the access provisions were legacy matters where staff were acting or worked in other areas and had access to particular folders and subsets of information that they otherwise wouldn't have. And while I did point out that, of course, they have code of conduct obligations around accessing those documents, it's still wise that if we see an area as part of an audit that has more access than is needed for people to do their job, then of course we're going to refine that. Does that answer the question, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Sorry, through you, Chair. May I just, on reflection, make a point of clarification in relation to one of Mayor Harding's questions? I think it's important to clarify that this review, the word failings, I just need to come back on that. So this review was focused on the procedures, per the resolution, focused on the council's, governance, policies, procedures in this area. So perhaps to clarify that, as the report indicates, again, there was no significant gaps found in the procedures. I need to make clear that this was not a retrospective review of any matters, that was not the scope of this review, nor appropriate, as that would be subject to review by external authorities, given the nature of the matter. So if I could just make that point of clarification, that this was focused more prospectively than retrospectively. Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee this morning? All right, there being no questions,
Can I just propose an amendment to the recommendations,
Thought you might.
please? Just add in recommendation C that the internal processes relating to this matter be reviewed in 12 months.
Chair, sorry, may I just clarify Councillor Johnning's proposal? When you say this matter, are we talking about the latest amendments to the policy?
So the amendments to the policy are there, but it's also...
Or you want the policy entirely reviewed?
So just reviewing its effectiveness, not the actual policy in itself, just on its
Just
own.
wanted to clarify for the wording,
But
that's all.
the internal processes and procedures that the report calls out.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yep.
Yep. Just because it is new to the council, just to make sure that it's
So
still
health checked in
effective
12 months'
and health checked.
all right, so would you like to move those three recommendations together? Look for a seconder on the committee this morning. Second by Councillor Doyle. I'll open it up for discussion. No discussion this morning from the committee?
Look, I just wanted to say this was really important to me. I think that having a fair and equal standing on all information when we have matters on the agenda that we all need to consider is one of our fundamental rights as a councillor, to assist in democracy, basically, and having internal tracking and controls is something that I'm always used to in accounting. There's always been an audit trail in whatever program I'm using that pulls up exactly when and where and how anything happens, and it's really, really simple. So I've always just, that's just been status quo for me. So this bringing some more order into our reporting mechanisms and the processes behind it, I think is really, really fundamental to help us achieve that equal role that we're here to do.
Thank you, Councillor Jonik. Any members of the committee willing to discuss the matter this morning? That being the case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of A, B and C? That's unanimous and carried. Item 2 today is the confirmation of minutes. Now, I've got a note here discussing at length. Do we need an adjournment, committee members?
My
Please-
apologies, Chair.
Apologies, Chair.
I'd remind you at any time you are able to move for an adjournment of any length of time, even 15 seconds.
In that case, Chair, may I move that we have an adjournment for 30 minutes, so come back at 10:36, please?
Any discussion on that from the committee? All right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's Councillor Jonik, Mayor Harding, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Milligan and Councillor Kunzman have voted for that. I myself will vote against. The matter is carried. See you at 10:36. Right, welcome back everyone. All councillors have returned, which is always a promising sign. Just on our first matter back here, the confirmation of minutes, I'd like to propose some alternative wording that notes the amendments made to items 5 and 11 at the council ordinary meeting on 24 November. If members of the committee want to have a look at what's on the screen, they'll find that most illuminating. So I'm happy to move that. Is there a seconder this morning? Councillor Doyle, any discussion on what is before us? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter. Those in favour?
Can I'm just seeing this for the first time. I just review the minutes again.
I believe the reading pack was circulated a week ago.
Do you mind, Vicky? Oh, right, okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just hadn't seen that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, we will proceed with the vote. Those in favour of adopting the recommendation before us, that's unanimous and carried. First officers' report for today is item 3, the disposal of council freehold land, access restriction strip located at lot 24 West Street, Redbank Plains. Are there any questions of the relevant officer? Mayor Harding.
Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Alicia Reid, Acting Property Services Manager.
Good morning, Ms. Reid, through the Chair. Just so I could see so the access restriction strip, so I've printed off some maps here, so I couldn't quite deduce even from the confidential documents exactly where it is. Is it on West Street? Is it off Bruce, Lillian, or where actually is it on the map?
So the access restriction strip is on West Street.
It's on maps, West Street sort of stops just near Redbank Plains Road. Are we saying that West Street continues all the way down to Bruce Street? Is that what?
Yeah, and it's
technically?
just the particular area that applies to that Bruce Street property.
So it says lot 24 West Street, Redbank Plains, but it's the access for, that's on Bruce Street.
Yeah, so the access restriction strip is, the street naming address is West Street.
Yep.
So it's the back of that 9 Bruce Street, and it's a small slither of freehold land. So I'm just...
When I look at Bruce Street, the last property on there is number 15. But on our, so I'm just checking, I'm not talking about something that's confidential, sorry, just checking. Okay, attachment 1's not confidential. But on our, what we have here is 9 Bruce Street. So is it looking at the ARS on 9 Bruce Street or 15?
Sorry, I'm just bringing it up
Yeah,
on the
sorry,
active
yeah.
mapping too, so it gives me a little
Just
bit
the way it
of
was
a
worded,
zen.
I thought it would have been the end property. Because I can't see 9 Bruce Street fronting onto West Street.
Okay, so what has happened is the access restriction strip runs along West Street and up Lillian Street.
Yep.
So it has actually got a street name address as West Street, but it is the access restriction strip area that runs along that Lillian Street frontage.
So it's not
that
just
makes
across
sense.
9 West Street, it's also 11 and 15.
Yes, but it would only be absorbed as road along the 9 Bruce Street back alignment. So what would happen is that section of the back property of 9 Bruce Street would be opened as road, and then the balance of that access restriction strip would be
Okay. Is that so Lillian Street could be extended, the gravel there?
yes.
Yeah, that's, okay. Thank you, Ms. Reid. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Any members of the committee really wanting to move recommendation A, B and C this morning? Councillor Jonnick, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion on this matter?
I think just from a report writing, it would be better to have some other maps, I think, and just be sort of a bit clearer about what's we're being asked to make a decision on would certainly help me.
Certainly, Mayor. Are you able to provide some written advice about what explicitly you'd like in maps? That may
I'll
help
go to
clarify the issue.
Thank you. I'll go to the CEO. Thank you.
All right, that being the case, I'll put the recommendations for the vote. Those in favour of adopting, that is unanimous and carried. Item 4 today is another disposal of council freehold land, the access restriction strip located at lot 149 Perdita Street, Bellbird Park. Any discussion or questions on this? No questions on this matter. I'll seek a mover for recommendation A, B and C. Moved by Councillor Jonnick and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on this matter this morning from the committee? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item 5 today is the iVolve program Stage 3 quarterly status update. Are there any questions on this matter this morning? Mayor Harding? Who in particular would you like to query this morning?
I think probably the General Manager of Corporate Services. I'm sure he'll let me know if it's someone else.
Morning, Mayor and Councillors. Matt Smith, General Manager, Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr Smith, and thank you very much for this report too. I'm referring to attachment 3, which is the Strategic Advisory Report of November 2022. And I appreciate the organisation doing this to support us through this very important project. I guess I'm interested to know your views on some of the statements in there, in particular 1.13, which talks about the council should consider risks, benefits and costs of the Oracle Fusion project to determine if the current approach is still valid. Do you have any views on that, or what is the organisation doing as a result of that comment?
I do, Mayor. The Oracle Fusion project was designed for us to manage some risk that we had, some imminent risk at a particular point in time in the organisation. Through some other work that the ICT department has been able to do, we have better balanced our current risk profile through some different avenues through our cybersecurity approach and a move to off-premise for some of our databases, which is reducing that risk, balancing that with the timing of our expression of interest as well to understand the residual risk to the organisation and the best approach moving forward to ensure we can maximise our expenditure and minimise risk across a number of the different modules that we'd be looking at through the project.
Okay, so why did the strategic advisors talk about, are they concerned that the current approach is not valid, or is it just more that they're ground truthing?
I could call on the strategic advisor. My understanding is that we are just ground truthing. It's not that we're suggesting the approach is wrong. It's with further information that we've been able to obtain, it was the right time to, without impacting the overall delivery timeline, reassess whether we were still on the right path.
Right. I'd like to move on to item 1.2.1 in the report. And there's a point there that says council should consider if it's adequately resourced and will have the required procurement skills to conduct large ICT exercise such as iVolve. Just wondering how you're managing that.
So, Mayor, there's probably been a couple of challenges in this space. We've had some unexpected absence and illness in our ICT procurement, or across our procurement team. It's been a significant program of procurement for our iVolve project, coupled with some other procurement activities in ICT to further our cybersecurity approach as well. We have been working to source additional support for our procurement team through that process. So we have brought in some external support to help bolster through some capability, and have recently also brought in some additional support again to help with our BAU so we can maintain the focus on the project.
Yeah, thank you. The next point is the Oracle Fusion project manager should be confirmed as soon as possible. So is that a recruitment or a contracted?
That's been an internal process that we've needed to work through. We now have a project manager for that part of the project. We're just working through finalising, as it states in the report, finalising our governance process as well to make sure it's appropriate for the full suite of the project as well, not just the fusion component.
Okay. So has that project manager started the role?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Smith.
Thank you, Mr Smith. I'm just looking at attachment 1, page 81 of our pack. Just under the quality risk, under the description in the notes, it says that procurement outcomes quality is limited information is being shared with the project team as part of the procurement selection and evaluation of information. So I'm just wondering what the organisation's plan is to manage that particular risk.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. We've been working through, I guess, critical in a project like this for council, such a broad project, so many organisations potentially bidding to make sure we're appropriately managing the probity risk associated with the project. We've been working through the right processes to get the appropriate balance between what needs to stay confidential through that procurement process and what the project team can understand at what stage of that process. There's been some challenges. I think it's fair to say we're through to the right space for that, and the project team are now far more involved in where we need to be to understand enough to continue to move the project forward without, I guess, impacting our probity and I guess, the pureness of the procurement process that we need to maintain.
So going forward, there's enough collaboration while sticking to the rigid.
Yeah, I believe so, Councillor. We're in a very good space right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr Smith. All right, what we have before us is... All right, that's not clear. That the report be received and the contents noted. Would a member of committee like to move that? Moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Kunzelmann. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the...
Sorry.
Councillor Jonik. Better late than never.
Sorry.
Or should I say, speak now or forever hold your peace?
I'm on the wrong item. Apologies.
All right. Last call again. No further discussion. I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item 6 today is the Queensland Audit Office 2022 final audit report. Any questions this morning on this matter? Councillor Jonik? I'll assume you're calling upon the CFO.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, Councillors. Jeff Keach, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Keach. Just highlighting the valuation of contribution or donations made to council, and then processes going forward to correct that. I note that in the report it states that we're using the new mechanism to value those assets. And is that consistent going forward?
Sorry, just to clarify, Councillor Jonik, is it regarding the new item or a historical, one of the outstanding matters, the revaluation of assets, not the process for receiving the donated assets?
So it's on page 95 of our pack, but it's page 4.
Okay.
So matters previously reported.
Yep, previously reported, yep, okay. So yes, so that's the process where when we receive donated assets, we've obviously got to bring them on under the standards at fair value.
Yep.
And we receive what's called a financial apportionment form signed off by independent engineers in relation to what that value is. What the process there that QAO have raised is over time we want to try to improve that, where we're not just solely using that, we're starting to look to use our own valuation methodologies as well associated with that by applying our own unit rates. That process, which is why it's still a work in progress, is still outstanding. So things we've got the new approach for receiving that in an electronic file. So the ADAC file that now comes through, that will help us with that. That's now starting to come into play where we're receiving that information. And once we've got that bill of quantities, we can then look to apply our unit rates and come up with the valuation ourselves versus currently utilising what's done by the independent engineers on behalf of the developers. So that's why it's still work in progress there at the moment with that file. But we're working through that.
Does that take into consideration like the economic climate at the moment and things like depending on what's getting donated?
So as part of every year we've got to revalue our assets. Sorry, we've got to consider the valuation and fair value of our assets. We have a formal revaluation process that comes through and aligns with the Audit and Risk Committee. As part of that annual valuation, any donated assets and the valuation of those, if they've been in the 1 year, we don't generally look at it too heavily because they're probably deemed to be not materially different. But once they're in our asset register, they get picked up as part of our normal revaluation, which considers economic factors in terms of what the replacement cost of those assets are. And last year there was a change in some of those valuations across our asset base because of the current economic conditions and the cost of replacing those.
Yeah, thank you. And then just in relation to the timing of reconciliation between the physical asset register and the fixed asset register. And going forward, I see that iVolve plays a big part in that. But then the process between now and iVolve, is there a system or process there in place?
Yes. So at the moment, we have our accounting fixed asset register and we have our physical accounting register, which is through Spatial and another Oracle database. Over time, once we get through the iVolve system, we'll look to whether we have one register or better alignment of those registers with referencing. The process at the moment that we've got in place is a workaround where through the finance team and also with the assets team in the Spatial team, we make sure that any donated assets that are received or construction assets are get recorded in both registers, and we undertake a reconciliation between the registers, which is reviewed by QAO, before we undertake the revaluation. And the reason why that is we use the physical asset register for the purposes of revaluing assets because it's the more detailed register. And so we undertake a reconciliation of those assets before we undertake the revaluation each year. And we've done that for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's been part of the review of QAO when they do the revaluation review. So we've got workarounds in place at the moment until we ultimately get the solution through iVolve, which will make sure that we've got those asset registers better aligned automatically. Okay. Well, as much as you can do automatically.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions for the CFO this morning? Thank you, Mr. Keach. I'll seek a mover that the report be received and contents noted. That is moved by the Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on that matter this morning, Mayor?
I just want to commend the organisation on working with QA on the developer contributed assets and how that's being managed. I want to appreciate the hard work put in that by the organisation for a good outcome.
Any further discussion this morning? There being no further discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of adopting, that's unanimous and carried. We're moving on to item 8 this morning, the CEO Performance Appraisal 2021-2022.
Item 7, Chair.
Oh, sorry. Audit annual financial statements for controlled entities, item 7. We'll deal with that first. Any questions on this matter? There'll be no questions. I'll seek a mover for the recommendation that report be received. Councillor Doyle, and seconded by Councillor Harding. Any discussion this morning on that? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Item 8 this morning, which we are now dealing with, is the CEO Performance Appraisal 2021-2022. Any questions of the relevant officer on this one? Being no questions, I'll seek a mover for A through D, moved by Mayor Harding and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. We have item 9 today, a matter referred from our first committee, which we're happy to discuss, the renewal of liquid petroleum gas for Bundamba and Goodna Aquatic Centres. We have a few parts to that recommendation, A and B. Seek a mover if there are no questions for the officer. Moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. That's all I've got before me today on my agenda. So I'll move along and close the meeting at 10:58 a.m.